Curtains have fallen on the Winter Olympic Games in Beijing, but for many, it's just a new start. The Olympic spirit could only shine so brightly because the Chinese people set the stage in such an excellent and safe way. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach said this at the closing ceremony last night. So what kind of efforts made it possible, especially during a pandemic, and how has Beijing 2022 made China a magnet for future international sports events? Earlier, I talked to Anthony Edgar, Senior Advisor for Beijing 2022. This is what he says about the scale and significance of these games.
Well, one thing I can say about Beijing, be it BOCOG in 2008 or 2022, is they'll always listen, and they were always respectful to me, which is why I've gladly worked with them again. But the biggest difference is the size. I mean, in China, everything is big. I mean, the numbers are just bigger than anywhere else, especially compared to a small country like Australia or Switzerland, where I've been in terms of numbers. So there's 26,000 media at a Summer Games, but there's only about 13,000 media at a Winter Games. There's in Tokyo, there were 45 sports and venues. At a Winter Games, there's only 7 sports and then disciplines as well. So the scale of it is very, very different. At a Summer Games, it's possible to cover every sport. You could have 20 sports on in one day. At a Winter Games, you can potentially cover every sport because you have a morning session, you've got an evening session, so it's more understanding that. But one of the examples, if you speak for a very basic one, is the danger of ice. And as simple as it may seem, I've been to so many Winter Games before where people have slid over on the ice first thing in the morning going to work, or they're going back at 2 o'clock in the morning. They haven't prepared the roads very well, or the footpaths, and staff have fallen over, broken their legs, broken their arms. And I haven't heard of one such case in 2022, even in Zhangjiakou, where it's been very, and Yanqing, where it's been very, very cold.
So these are some of the details that people who are inexperienced about Winter Olympics might ignore, and you fill in these blanks. It's for me as a Chinese who know how the Chinese organizers work, how much work has been put in there, it's not a great surprise. But from an outsider's perspective, and this is the first time that Beijing hosts Winter Olympic Games, many of these things are new for the Chinese people and for the Chinese organizers as well. Can you help the audience who may not have these kind of context understand what has been put in there to make sure that the games have been delivered in such a spectacular way, in such a smooth way?
Well, their plans for the venues were always state of the art. I mean, the jumping hill, for example, there's probably not a better one in the world. The downhill course, which had never held a venue there like that before, it is amazing course. I mean, all of the events. So the planning that went into the venues, now that's the same as what they did in 2008, mind you. It's just they've transferred it to winter sports. They have brought in experts. So they knew that, for example, they didn't have, even though there were many, many staff working in 2022 who also worked in 2008. So they know how to run an Olympic venue. They know how many media come. They know the demands of the media. They know that the athletes need respect and how to move through, what a mixed zone is, and all of those sorts of things. But what they realize is they've never had someone who's been a photo manager at the downhill, for example, and to understand the intricacies of how that works. Or they haven't had people necessarily run figure skating before, or speed skating, or the curling venue. So yes, they transferred the water cube from a pool into an ice sport venue. It used to be basketball, for example, and concerts. So they've done that very well, but they also brought in international expertise like myself, but also many people of the photo managers, press managers who could help them. There's not a lot, but they've done it where they felt that they might need some assistance. And that's very, very good. They've always been prepared to listen to international expertise.
Yeah. You have talked a lot about continuity between 2008 and 2022. What has changed then, both in terms of the city, the organizers, the organization? The world has changed a lot. So what has changed for you in this experience?
The confidence, I would have to say it's the confidence of Beijingers and China itself. And that's not that much different from when I was running the Sydney Olympic, I was working on the Sydney Olympic Games. You know, could we actually do it? We've never done anything this big before. And I do feel that, you know, when I was coming here in the early days of for 2008, China and Beijing knew it could do it, but it had never done it before. It had never put on the world's biggest event. Could we do it? How would it work? How would the people take it? And I mean, I found London had also great doubts. I mean, an amazing city like London, still there were many staff who really weren't sure, could we do it? Will we mess up? Will we get it right? And I feel in 2008, there was that. When it was successful, there was a great sigh of relief. And I think from everyone, I mean, including many of the very senior members of Bach whom I knew. And they were very happy. But this time they knew they could do it, but the COVID infrastructure that had to be put in place, that was difficult. And no one could tell you a month ago what was going to happen. But they put in extraordinary plans in place to try and protect the athletes, to try and protect the accredited media here, their plans have changed about bringing in spectators, so they're not as many spectators as they thought. So they've had to be flexible, and sometimes being flexible is not a Chinese thing.
We want things to be well planned, and it goes according
Absolutely.
to the plan. But you have to learn, you know, that's part of the thing of being, you know, a developed city where you have to be able to respond to all kinds of situations. That's part of the challenge. But 2008, Beijing was a very different place. China was a very different place. And the Olympic Games meant a lot for China in 2008. It literally, it was, you know, given a lot of significance. One of it was, for instance, was the China's coming out party, for instance. But China really did a good job. What would these games be for the city of Beijing or for China in your eyes? Have you thought about it?
I haven't thought about it, funnily enough. I normally would. I think that, again, part of that is just is because of COVID. It's given us a different focus on things, and it's only right now that we're really going out to a lot more venues and seeing, and everything's worked so well. But some of the things that I know already are going to happen. I mean, the big air venue is going to be used every single year by FIS for a major event. The alpine venues that you build, they will become World Cup venues, maybe even World Championship venues. That'll happen with the cross country, it'll happen with the freestyle venues, it'll happen with the so many of those sports. And I think you now are in a position where you'll be able to start attracting many of the best events in the world to Beijing, because not only do you have the best venues, but you have an extraordinary infrastructure in Beijing. Most winter venues that are hosting an event, they don't have a big city infrastructure behind them. Beijing does. That's very unique. It's not like going to a ski resort in France, where it's got some hills and and accommodation. Here you've got an infrastructure to run both summer and winter events. You've got the bird's nest, which can hold 90,000 people. So if you want to do a real spectacular, like you do with the big air sometimes in the bird's nest, it gives international federations a way to think big. Because as you know, everyone wants the Chinese market, and every sport would like to break into the Chinese market. And I think now, based on your commitment originally that you were going to have 300 million people take up winter sports, then it's you're in a good place to start doing that, because you've got the venues to attract it.
But going beyond sports, have you thought about what extra significance these successful Winter Olympics could mean for China? Like, the kind of boost it got from hosting 2008, both in terms of image or confidence. Do you think 2022 would make a difference in that regard?
Well, I haven't thought economically. I mean, I don't think it's going to make that sort of impact like 2008 did. But I do think the fact that, the international sporting infrastructure can look at China to host any event it wants now, be it an NBA basketball match, be it a downhill skiing world championship thing. That's quite significant. And it's not just Beijing. I mean, there are Chengdu and some of the other cities around which also have great facilities. But it makes China far more inviting in that sense. And it means I think you'll have a lot of the sporting federations and entrepreneurs knocking on your door, if you don't have enough in China already, saying, we can really help to grow your sport in this country.
Yeah, I already know a lot of colleagues sending their children on ice and talking about how young they have to start. Anyway, many thanks to Anthony Edgar, a senior advisor to the BOCO organizer of the Beijing Winter Olympic Games.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.